Good evening, gentlemen. So candidates, you will each get 2 minutes for an opening statement and a closing statement. I will be asking each of you the same question, and you will each get 1 minute to give a response. When you have 30 seconds left, our timekeeper, who will be sitting right in front of you, right there, will hold up the sign, okay? They will then give you a 15-second warning by holding up this sign. And when you are out of time and you must stop, they will hold up the red sign. Now, for the first person who was asked the question, there will be a 30-second rebuttal period allowed. Okay, with that said, we're going to begin. All right, so we will start with, let's see, did we have a coin toss at the beginning? Who won the coin toss? No? Okay, so I guess I'll make the coin toss, I guess, theoretically speaking. Okay, so we are going to start with Mike May. It's okay. No, I'm sorry, wrong panel. Hold on a second. Okay. So we're going to start with Glen Hill. Okay. All righty. So, Mr. Hill, if you would please introduce yourself and answer why you want to be the sheriff of Prince William County.
Well, first, good evening, and I want to thank all the organizations that put this together, and I want to thank everyone that's come out tonight, and hopefully you will see the difference between my opponent and I on the questions that we ask and our responses. I am running for sheriff again because I want to continue to build on all of those things that I built on over the last 16 years. One of the things I really want to focus on, and that is very important because you can't operate without that, is to continue to recruit, train, and retain qualified personnel. But I would be remiss in my comments if I didn't tell the audience that I am blessed to have served 50 years in law enforcement in this community. And I am humbled to have served as your sheriff for the past 16 years. I have done an extraordinary job as your sheriff for the past, again, 16 years. This race is really not about who's the most qualified. The other candidates cannot come close to my record. I have served my community, and the leadership that I have provided and the hard work that I put in over the years certainly has been recognized by a lot of people in this community. One candidate in this race wants to be the first female sheriff in Prince William County. My opponent in this race, he's a progressive Democrat that wants to basically take the office because he is a Democrat. I don't blame him for wanting to take this office because when I took this office, I have brought it a long ways. And it is one of the most respected sheriff's offices in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I can't blame anyone who wants to become sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Good evening. My name is Josh King, and I'm the Democratic nominee for sheriff. I want to start off by saying thank you to the Prince William County NAACP, the League of Women Voters, and the National Pan-Hellenic Council, along with the ACLU and the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy for hosting this event. I also wanted to thank all the residents of Prince William County, Manassas and Manassas Park who came out to this event. Tonight, I'm here to talk about criminal justice reform. I'm running for sheriff because today we are still talking about the same issues with criminal justice reform that Dr. King was talking about 50 years ago. In the last 50 years, we focused too much on criminals and not enough on justice. We need to end the school-to-prison pipeline, end any policies that tear families apart, and have more law enforcement accountability and program transparency so we can start new conversations and find better solutions. My number one priority as sheriff would be to build public trust because I believe that when people trust law enforcement, communities are safer. We need criminal justice reform and we need it now. We do not have another 50 years to wait. Thank you.
so much. And so we're going to go right into, and we're going to try to hold our applause. Candidate King, how will you use your position as chair of the Regional Jail Board to support the prevention of crime?
So as a public servant for the last 19 years, I will use my experience as a current law enforcement officer and a military police to work with the jail board to find new solutions to some of the age-old questions that we face. One of the questions that we face is, why is the jail continuously filled with black and brown folks? It's always been that way. This country has a history of having black and brown folks in jail, and it needs to stop. I also want to work with them to talk about these issues with other people, like the faith community, working with the accountability supervisors, and the citizens to find solutions to the questions that we need to answer that hasn't been answered in the last 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hill?
Yes, repeat the question, please.
Sure. How will you use your position as chair of the Regional Jail Board to support the prevention of crime?
Well, I was the jail superintendent for over 10 years. And one of the things that I did as jail superintendent was we had a captive audience. And one of the things that I noticed that what was lacking with a lot of people that were incarcerated was a lack of confidence and training. So I got with the chaplain one day and I said, we need to create some faith-based programs so that when people leave our facility, they will be better people than what they were. I see so many cases where when people are incarcerated, we actually create monsters while they are there. So I say, look, here's an opportunity for us to help people so that when they return to their communities, they will have the confidence and skills that they need so that they can be better citizens, better parents in our community. One of the things that happens in jail is you create an atmosphere so people will want to take advantage of what you have to offer them while they are there.
Thank you so much. Mr. King, would you like to rebut?
Absolutely. Evidently, whatever programs we're doing right now aren't working. The same people are still in jail. The same questions haven't been answered, and we need to find new solutions. One big issue is that we have too many people in jail for drug-related offenses, and I want to make sure that we find new programs like maybe a drug court or something to divert as many people away from jail and keep families together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hill? Prince William and Culpeper counties are the only localities in Virginia that hold 287G agreements with ICE. These agreements allow the jail to deputize its officers as ICE agents and hold inmates 48 hours past release if ICE has issued a detainer for their custody. The consequences of this cooperation can have a chilling effect when it comes to reporting crime among the immigrant community. What is your position on terminating or continuing to renew the 287G agreement the regional jail has with ICE?
Yes, one of the things I need to correct is the 48 hours, that's not true. That's not true. Well, first of all, when I was a jail superintendent, I did a lot of business with then INS. INS was, during that time, they would go out and round up people and bring to the jail. I had a contract with them. You know, when you run a jail, it's a business. And if you run a business, you want to be as cost effective as possible. And that time, I did enter into agreements with the INS. I cannot answer that question within 30 seconds. I mean, can we get time to talk about this, because this is an important subject?
You have 30 seconds. So you're saying, what does the agreement do if it does not allow you to keep the inmates more than 48 hours in addition?
What the agreement does is, if a person is arrested and they are booked into the regional jail, everyone is screened for legal status. Now, if that person is here illegally, a detainer may be placed on that person. After the detainer is placed on that person, the ICE is notified, and they have 72 hours to pick that person up. It's the law.
Okay.
And I signed.
You can have some more time in the rebuttal period. I
Yes.
think your time is up at this moment. Okay, Mr. King, would you like to address that question?
Absolutely. So, as a law enforcement officer, I joined as a law enforcement officer to assist, protect, and defend everyone. As an Iraqi war veteran, I fought for everyone in this country, to include all residents. Everyone who lives here deserves equal protection under the law. And in this county, in the last 20 years, the demographic has changed. 1 in 4 people who live here are an immigrant and are immigrant families. And this program was made many years ago that affect the same community that lives here. The sheriff's office and all law enforcement are here to protect everyone. And when we try to put citizens first over the public first, it is a problem. Any program that tears families apart is a bad program. We still wasted so much money, over $2 million over these many years, and I think that money could have been better spent on more programs to keep families together and not tear them apart.
You may rebut at this time.
Yes. The 287G, I signed 3 agreements with the Obama administration. And during that time, I heard nothing from Democrats or Republicans. And I felt very proud when I went to the Virginia Sheriff's Association, because when the federal government presented this program to other sheriffs in the Commonwealth, they said that Prince William County had the model. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the law. And if you don't like the law, change it. I'm a law enforcement officer. I took the oath to enforce the law. Okay. And I am not one of the law enforcement officers that are selective about what laws I enforce.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're not going to have any, we're going to try to remain quiet until the very end. So the next question is for Mr. King. What kind of drug treatment programs should be offered in your jurisdiction? And what programs do you think are most urgently needed and why?
So when I was young, there was a crack epidemic. I was young. I'm 38 now, and I've seen stories. I know people who went through that. And the people affected were demonized, put in jail, locked up. But now we have an opioid crisis, and because it affects a different demographic of people, we want to call it a mental health problem. It was a mental health problem back then, and it's a mental health problem right now. And the drug companies who have put this stuff out here should be the ones paying for the treatment that we need. We should not be demonizing anyone who does drugs, and we need to find better solutions to help them stay out of jail, because jail is no place to learn. Jail is a place to hold somebody, and we need to have better programs to divert them from being there, like a drug court or a veterans treatment program to keep veterans out of jail and at home with their families where they belong. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And moderator's privilege, let me just point out that for many of us, 30-something is still young. Okay.
I'm going to say this again. It's the law. And if you violate the law, you're subject to be arrested. Now, at the jail, I did start a drug program. And that drug program has been successful. Many people have been to that program and are now a lot better citizens, a lot better shape than they were when they got there. I'm going to tell you something, folks. Jail saves lives. I've seen people come to jail that were in terrible condition. And when they left there, I hated to see them leave because I knew the world they were going back to. So being in jail is not real terrible for a lot of people. It helped people change their life. And I am so proud that I was able to establish programs to help people. I wish we had more room, because the last time I checked with the jail, I think we had over 100 people on the waiting list. Drugs are a problem. Drugs and gangs have destroyed our families and communities. That's why we need to do more about it. We talk about people that are locked up in jail. We need to talk about training.
We're going to have to cut you off here. I'm sorry, I just want a strict schedule. Sure. And rebuttal, Amy? Any rebuttal, please?
Listen, I work in a jail right now in Fairfax County. I've been there for 12 years. I haven't met one happy inmate in jail doing a program. They would rather be home with their families, getting support. I was a veteran, and I had mental health issues when I came from the military. And because I had a family, because I had a church, because I had programs in the VA, and I had stuff right there, and I had a job, and I had food to eat, and I had somewhere to live, I survived. And that's why I'm sitting here today, and they deserve the same chance I got.
Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Hill, to you. What steps would you take as sheriff to ensure that your staffing reflects the community that you serve?
Oh, that is a great question. When I was a jail superintendent, we had the most diverse agency in the county. And since I've been sheriff, my agency is, again, one of the most diverse agencies in the county. And it's not by luck. is by recruiting. And not only that, I have a reputation of the way I manage, the way I run my office. When people come in and I talk to them about why you want to come to the sheriff's office, they will tell me, it's because of you. The way you have a reputation in this county of not only being a good leader, but running good organizations. You know, I was the first black officer in this area over 50 years ago. I put the D in diversity.
Mr. King.
One thing that's important about hiring, and I've been fortunate to work with a lot of men and women all over the Commonwealth and around the world, frankly. And it's one thing to get somebody who looks like you, but you have to have someone who's a reflection of the community. Diversity is more than what you look like, because everyone who looks like you aren't for you, and that's a fact. So you have to have people who think the way that you do. And the sheriff's job is to make sure that they hire staff that reflect what the needs of the community are, not the needs of the sheriff. Thank you.
Would you like a rebuttal period?
Well, first of all, you have to know the position of the sheriff. Everyone that works for me works in my image. They work at the will. They work at me. So when I hire people, I look for qualified people because they're out in the community. When they're wearing that uniform, they're working in my image. I have no problem when I have people that work for me when they say, Sheriff, I am proud to wear this uniform and represent you in the community. And my community represents this community, the makeup of this community.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. King, would you support developing a community oversight body to provide input and transparency to the Prince William County Sheriff's Department? Why or why not?
Absolutely. As much input as we need. Some people said, I will try to get this right, it takes a village to raise a community. I think I said that right. I want to need help from everyone. From the kids, from the teenagers, from the parents, from the school board, from the state legislators. It's going to take all of us to come together to solve this problem. This problem is not new. This is something that's been going on for hundreds of years. African Americans have been in this country for 400 years, and we still haven't got it right. The time is now for us to come together as a community and stop tearing each other apart. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hill?
I heard this answer, but give me the question again.
Absolutely. Would you support developing a community oversight board to provide input and transparency to the Prince William County Sheriff's Department? Why or why not?
I would have no problem at doing that. Because one of the things I do now, I talk to a lot of citizens in the community. Establishing an oversight board for a board that I can bounce things off of and for them to give me their input about how they see what we're doing in the community, what the problems are in the community that we can be part of to help. I would have no problem at all entertaining a board.
Wonderful. And would you have any other remarks?
Absolutely. I mean, the sheriff has had 16 years to affect change of the issues that we all are talking about tonight. He's had his time. He has 16 years unopposed. I'm the first Democrat to stand up and say something. So he's had his time. And I'm here tonight to tell you that he doesn't deserve another 4 years to get it done. We needed it 16 years ago. We don't need it just now when it's convenient. We needed it yesterday. Thank you.
Yes.
Woo! All right, and Mr. Hill. Women are the fastest growing population in Virginia's jails. The rate of incarceration for women has increased over 900% between 1980 and 2016. According to the State Compensation Board, women inmates suffer mental illness at twice the rate of male inmates and specialized health care. As the chair of the Regional Jail Board, what steps will you lead to help make sure that the Regional Jail Board ensures that female inmates get the routine health care services that all women need?
That's a great question. When I was a jail superintendent, when I implemented a program, it was called the Mind Dorm, Men in New Direction. Well, I also started a program for women in New Direction. And I tell you what, I had a group of women I got together, and about 20, I asked them questions. And in that meeting, 18 out of 20 women were mothers. So we started a mom's program. So everything that I could do to help the ladies while they were incarcerated, I'm in favor of. When the cocaine epidemic hit America, not only in Prince William County, the female population went up 500%. So I knew that we had to do something. And every time we start a program, I make sure that the women are included also in the drug programs. A lot of women that are in jail are in for what they call technical violations. That means that they went to court and they got probation, and while they were out, they violated their probation. So I knew that they needed some drug treatment programs.
Thank you so much. Mr. King?
So as I've been campaigning since November, I was approached by a group called, I think it's Friends of Guest House. They're based out of Alexandria, and they approached me and they said, listen, we noticed that we have a lot of recidivism with women, and we have a program to house women, because a lot of women, they get out of jail and they don't have the basic needs. In jail, you get three things. You get three meals, you get health care, you get roof over your head. And when you leave out of jail, some of those families are lost. Some of the kids are lost in the foster care system. They got to fight for everything. They get out and they don't have anything. So we need to have better transitional programs for women to keep them from coming back to jail. Because while they're in jail, yeah, we can get some programs for them while they're in, but we need more programs to keep them out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hill, would you like to rebut?
Yes, there are programs to help women once they leave the facility. I know it's a group that help women find transitional housing, also help them find employment. That organization now has been in existence about 3 or 4 years, and they're doing an excellent job helping our ladies return to the community. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these women are mothers. So it's important that we put those families back together.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, jail does a lot to help people.
Okay. Mr. King, the regional detention facility in Manassas is rated to hold 667 inmates, but typically houses between 900 and 1,000 people on any given day. Couple that with a turnover rate of nearly 20%, the highest in years according to the Prince William Times. As the chair of the board of the Regional Jail Authority, what steps can and will you take to ensure that conditions inside the jail are safe for those who are housed there?
Well, the county decided that we were going to spend $44 million over a 5-year period to add 205 more beds. That was the answer for the county. So it's filling up, let's add more beds. I'm looking at it differently. We should be reducing that. We should be waiving people. A lot of people that are for drug offenses, they shouldn't be there in the first place. Mental illness, they shouldn't be there. There's a lot of these issues that can be handled, and we need to make more programs to keep people out. We have a lot of immigrants that are in there that shouldn't be there too. That's why I'm getting rid of this program. And we need to actually take some of that money and invest in programs like community centers and things that can keep our kids off the street and out of jail in the first place. We shouldn't be focused on making them more comfortable in jail. Jail's not meant to be comfortable. They shouldn't be in there in the first place. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Mr. Hill?
Well, the 200 beds that we're building now, see, when candidates run for office, they should do their homework and find out why we're building 200 beds. The county is not building 200 beds for that reason. Years ago, the city and the county had a disagreement about the magnitude of the facility and the location of the facility, and we got behind. These are catch-up beds. Also, we were taking advantage of the reimbursement from the state. The Prince William project is probably the last project in the state that's going to get 50% reimbursement. So we were trying to catch up because we were behind in the bed space that we needed.
Thank you. Mr. King?
I don't have a rebuttal. We jump to this question, please.
Absolutely. No. Sorry. Mr. Hill, I believe there might be some time for final statements. Maybe there's something that you can say then. Mr. Hill, solitary confinement is the isolation of a person in a cell for approximately 22 to 24 hours a day with little human contact and interaction, reduced or no natural light, and other severe restrictions. Numerous studies confirm that prolonged isolation deprives prisoners of the basic human needs to function, with efforts that become noticeable after as little as 10 days of involuntary solitary confinement. As the chair of the board of the Regional Jail Authority, what policies would you propose for the practice of solitary confinement, such as restricting solitary confinement, such that it is only used in extraordinary circumstances and never exceeds a certain amount of days?
Yes. We call it solitary confinement, but it is isolation. And sometimes you have to isolate people for a lot of reasons. One, because they may be a threat to themselves. They may be a threat to others. We also isolate people sometimes because of witness protection. And sometimes we have to keep a watch on people, especially the ones that come in that have some mental health issues. So they're on observation, even though they are isolated, they're under observation. If you run a facility and you want to keep your facility safe, you also want to keep the people that are inside safe. You also want to keep the people that work there safe. That's important. Sometimes we forget about those men and women that work there. So sometimes you have policies in place to make sure that your facility is a safe place to work. Create a safe environment is what the policies do.
Thank you. All righty. And I think I'm kind of got this.
It's me.
Yes.
I currently work in the jail, and we have what we call a restraint check that we use on individuals who might bang their head or try to hurt somebody or another deputy. And officer safety is very important. I mean, all of us go in to work, and we don't go in there to bang somebody up. We go in there to keep people safe. We want to keep ourselves safe and keep them safe. We want them to come out better than the way they came in, and we want to come home the same way, if not better, when we come home. It's very important. I agree with some of the things he's saying, because it is true that we do have to do that, and there are at least restricted ways we can do. I don't think we should keep them in for too long, and we should definitely do better checks and keep them. Some guys go on a suicide watch, and there's things like that we have to watch and monitor them, and we have cameras and stuff to watch them. But it's important that we keep them safe. But definitely keeping them in too long, I think anybody would go lose their mind. Thank you.
And Ms. Hill, do you have a rebuttal?
One of the things that I notice about isolation sometimes, when we put people in isolation, they have a tendency to find themselves. And sometimes when I say find themselves, the condition that people are in when they come in sometimes, I've seen people come in with DTs and some other illnesses, and they need to be by themselves. And I noticed one thing about inmates that were in our GED program. When they got isolated, you were amazed at what they did when they went to that GED class. Okay. They were not distracted by other inmates in the population, and they had outstanding grades.
Thank you. Mr. King. Last month, a 34-year-old man housed in the Prince William County Jail was found unconscious in his cell. He later died. No single state agency is charged with reviewing the circumstances behind deaths in local or regional jails, nor is any state agency responsible for ensuring that jail officials review or change their policies and procedures when someone dies in their custody. How do you think death investigations should be handled?
Well, currently where I work in Fairfax, we have the PD, they come in, they do the investigations. We tape it off, we let people come in, and we have an outside investigation come in. I think that it's important to partner with the local police to investigate these things and make sure that everything was that we did everything we were supposed to do, that we gave them their medication, that we fed them, that we did our checks, that we were there, we did everything we could possibly do. And we have to have transparency and accountability when it comes to someone dying. Yes, they're inmate, but that's somebody's child. That's somebody's child. Somebody loves that person. And when we have to go and get that death notification, we have to make sure we do it with care and make sure that we do the best we can to give them all the facts that we can until the investigation is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
It is unfortunate that occasionally someone that's committed to a jail dies. keep in mind, a lot of people that come to jail are in poor health. I have seen inmates that come to jail that have not seen a doctor since they were 5 or 6 years old. The regional jail is no different from a lot of jails in the country. It is probably the biggest health provider in the county. People receive excellent health care while they're there. The inmate that she was just referring to was in poor health when he arrived. It was unfortunate, and it was unfortunate what happened. But we do a lot to help people when they are incarcerated at a facility through our medical. And the case was investigated by an outside agency.
Thank you. Mr. King, would you like to rebut?
Yes, the only thing I would like to say is that, it hurts the morale of the jail officers to see that happen. I have friends, we have things that have happened. I've seen things, suicides and the like. And I think what's more important, another thing that's important is that after such things that happen, that we have all the resources and tools for our officers to make sure that their health is okay, because they're trying to do a good job. Nobody goes to work thinking that this is going to happen to them, and I just want to just put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, as chair of the board of the Regional Jail Authority, what specific policies do you think could be put in place to decrease incarceration and increase public safety? And how would you go about seeking adaptation of those policies?
Yes, currently we have a group that we put together called EBDM. And EBDM consists of police, Commonwealth attorneys, judges, the adult detention center, probation officers, members in the community, the chaplains on that committee. And we look at ways to reduce our jail population. I'm chairman of that committee. I guess they wanted someone that that could work with all the agencies, and I'm proud of what we have accomplished. I believe our jail population has gone down about 80 inmates per month. So we reduce that population by looking at inmates that can be referred to a different program, include veterans. We have a veterans docket. We have a mental health docket. So we look at everyone that's coming in. And the good part about the EBDM, police, which they never had to do before, is talk to the magistrate when they come in. If they notice something about that person, that we can refer them to the jail and let them know what they're receiving when they get them.
Thank you. Mr. King.
So I want to take a different look at this. When I look at people in jail, I have to sit back and ask the question, why are they here? Some of them are homeless. Some of them are hungry. Some of them are jobless. And here in Prince William County, we don't have enough affordable housing. We don't have enough jobs here in the county. And let me tell you something, I'm a parent, I have 3 kids. And if I can't feed my kids, if I can't pay my bills, if I don't have a job, my kids still gotta eat. So you gotta ask the question, why are these people committing crimes in the first place? So when we address those questions and eliminate those problems and actually have more jobs for them to do, people get out of jail and they got a felony and they can't go to the army, they can't do this. Well, what can they do besides go back to jail and commit crime? So we need to work on the housing, we need to work on making sure that they have all the things that they need to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, anytime I address a problem, I always try to look at how it started. When you see young men go to jail, that means they have no skills. That's why I hope our school boards start looking at programs that we can start training young men while they're in school. You know, when you see a young man get out of class at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that spells trouble right there. I think there's time enough that we can start some programs in school to help men develop some skills. Skills keep men and women out of jail.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King. According to the superintendent of the regional jail, 44% of those held are pretrial. That is the second highest percentage in the state. These are people awaiting trial that have not yet been convicted of a crime. As an elected official and chair of the regional jail board, what role will you play in collaboration with the Commonwealth's attorney, the police department, and other elected officials in the county to develop programs or institute reforms to reduce the number of people held pretrial in Prince William County?
So, as an elected official, I'll be able to work with not just the local folks here, but I can actually work with the state delegates, and there's some laws that need to be passed. We need bond reform. There's a lot of people sitting in jail, and if you get locked up on a holiday weekend, you're going to wait all day until Monday, and you can lose your job over the weekend. So that's very important. And you have been convicted, but now you lost your job, your car's impounded, and all those things. So we have to have a better way of doing it, especially if people, they're not from here, they don't have family, they're locked up, and they don't have access to their funds. So we definitely need bail bond reform, and we need to work with the Commonwealth Attorney to lower these things and look at it at a, of course they look at it at an individual basis, but we have to have a better program because we have just way too many people locked up before trial.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
That's one of the things that the committee, I mentioned earlier, EBDM, those were exact problems that we looked at. There's a lot of reasons why that number's at 44%. It may be because of cases getting continued. It may be because when drugs are sent to the lab, our labs in Virginia on all type cases are running behind. As I mentioned about the continuances, that really comes from the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. As the jail, we get involved and help as much as possible, but as far as moving inmates along through the court system, the only thing that we can do from the pretrial status is assist our Commonwealth attorneys and anyone else that needs our help into moving those cases along faster. But there's not much we can do with the jail. When persons are committed to our custody, our job is to create a safe environment and keep those people in our custody. But as far as the process goes along the line, that's really out of our authority.
Okay. Any rebuttal?
No, ma'am.
All righty. So we're going to conclude with the final question, and this will go to Mr. Hill. The Board of Corrections has adopted accreditation standards that restricts the use of shackling the pregnant inmates. Do you agree or disagree with this policy that pregnant women should not be shackled while in custody? Why or why not?
Oh yes, I agree with that. When I was a jail superintendent, before the Board of Corrections did that, I issued an order that we do not shackle pregnant females. They are not a threat. If I need to send 2 people or 3 people, how many people I need to send on that transport when we move a pregnant female, that's what I did. Because I would hate for something to happen where she fell or something happened. So I absolutely agree with that policy. I did that before the state even recognized it was a problem.
Thank you so much. Mr. King?
So preservation of life is very important. I've seen a lot of women come in and out of jail pregnant. And it's one of these things where we have to be very careful on when we use restraints. And I think that we should not use the shackles on them. We absolutely have to. But for the most part, we have enough bodies there, that person's not going to be a threat. And I agree with what Mr. Hill said, and I will continue to do the things that he's already doing.
Thank you. Mr. Hill, any rebuttal?
No, I have no response. I've answered that question.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you have. So I want to thank you both, and I want to remind everyone to stay seated because we're going to move to the Commonwealth's Attorney panel next. But before we do, we're going to have closing statements, and we will have 2 minutes for each candidate, and we're going to go in the opposite order than what we started. So I believe that means we're going to begin with Mr. King.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. You could have been anywhere, but you decided to come out here and invest into your community. I believe that the sheriff's main role is to build bridges in our community. I don't care who you are or where you're from. I believe that everyone should have equal protection under the law and that we should work together to keep families together, not tear them apart. The sheriff provides courthouse security and civil process, yes, but as the chief law enforcement officer in the county, I believe that the sheriff should be at the forefront of criminal justice reform and especially of law enforcement reform. Not only does the sheriff has the power to drive change in his own office, but the sheriff has a remarkable platform to work with the regional jail board, the board of supervisors, and our state legislators to pursue progress. And if you want progress, you need to elect a progressive. We are in an era that demands bold new leadership, and I'm asking for your vote on November 5th and to let all your friends know there's a new sheriff in town. Thank you.
Sí se puede. Yes, we can.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill.
I started my career as a police officer, detective. I went to the regional jail. I ran for sheriff in 2003, and I've been your sheriff now for 16 years. One of the things that you have to do in this business is prepare yourself. You just don't come in as a deputy sheriff in a jail and step into the job as sheriff. Now, in Fairfax County, he has not been promoted, and there's a reason for that. Just think about it. He wants to be the sheriff in Prince William County, and he's just a deputy sheriff in Fairfax County. He wants to be the chief top law enforcement officer in this county. You have to have experience. When you sit to the table with people, professionals in this county, about any emergency that we have, you have got to bring something to the table because you represent the people. So it's important that people pick the right person to be their sheriff. As I mentioned earlier in my comments, I have done an exemplary job as your sheriff. There have been no scandals. You haven't read nothing on the front pages about the sheriff's office. Look at the sheriff's office now and what it was when I took over. Progressive. I don't know what that means, but in law enforcement, it does not mean anything. I have kept up with all the technology and all the everything that we need to run a good office. What you need to look at on November the 5th is this. Do we want a sheriff that has experience, or do we want a progressive sheriff with no experience that's a community activist? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming, and I look for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much. You may exit the stage. Thank you so much.